This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
World's largest elephant population, approximately 130,000, and for covering nearly 40% of its land with national parks and wildlife reserves. Gaborone is the capital. Let's go to the proverb. Yeah, they're also rich in diamonds. Right. Let's go to the proverb. Even if it's a cripple, it can still be able to walk.
Even if it's a cripple, it can still be able to walk. Which means nothing is quite impossible if you decide, put your mind to it. If a cripple can walk, then what can happen? Yeah.
Even if it's useless, it has some level of importance.
There's still some life in it somewhere.
Yeah, even you being useless in life can be used as an example.
Exactly. All right. Champagne. You know the drink?
Yeah, I know.
It was an accident. The champagne, actually, when they had actually crushed the grapes to then, and they left it out a little bit longer, and somebody mistakenly added an ingredient to it.
Right.
And then it became this refined beverage. And it took on a different persona from the normal wine that everybody else would consume, especially in France, in the southern part of the country. And so this happy accident then became a global phenomenon whereby now people started to pay premium for this particular beverage. And now it was then used at celebrations whereby they would open the lid and it would pop. Right? So people used it for celebrations, and people then started to make it in different grades. So it was an accident to get it where it was. But it became the stuff that became really expensive when it came to beverages. And it was only a preserve of those who had a little bit of money to spend. Right? Why do I give this little analogy? Because it's around the things that we'll be talking about today. That we're talking about champagne governance, whereby in a country that is still developing in many aspects, it would appear as though people who have the position of making sure that this development and governance is actually seen through are living the champagne kind of life, whereby they're not keeping the best for the celebration, but they're using the best every day, whether it's 340 million shillings on chopper rides, internal travel, whether it's ensuring that you go off on a retreat, whether it's using 5 million shillings of county funds for a homecoming party. Whether it is taking 10 million shillings that should be used for county to use for development enhancement, whatever that may
200 million shillings to go to the US. I mean,
55 million to buy seedlings we can't find.
There you go. It's the champagne kind of life that seems to be living right now, and it's not a celebration. So why are you popping the champagne when there's nothing to celebrate at the moment?
Actually.
Why? What's going on?
But in my own view, what's happening is exactly what I expected to happen. Actually, we have not seen the worst. Nothing that has happened so far surprises me in this government, because the people we elected are the people that are doing exactly what some of us anticipated they will be doing.
What we were warned.
They are only being themselves. They are not there for the good of the country. They went there for themselves. And that's why you see all these chopper rides. It's not about service to the people. It's about a feel-good moment for the person who is in office. It's about my turn to eat. So some of the Kenyans are actually surprised, those who expected that we are going to have a leadership that really cares about the people. But Joakim is not surprised. Yes. I remember I was very loud in the last elections, warning the people of the looming crisis. But they say the majority must have their way, and for us, the minority must have our say. But moving forward, because if this kind of champagne governance persists, then there will be nothing left for any other Kenyan if we continue with this kind of governance style. Because I look forward to a country where you don't have to have proximity to power to enjoy some privileges. You don't have to have some title to yourself for you to afford basic human requirements. I look forward to a country where a parent doesn't have to sweat it out to afford school fees, or sweat it out to even think of managing to get the best health care. But if we continue with this kind of champagne leadership, then the worst is yet to happen.
I mean, Joakim, you look at it, like you said, we are pumping champagne in a funeral. And when we just want to paint the picture of the funeral we're at, it's that today the Ministry of Health says it needs 22 billion shillings, right? Yet 11 billion shillings has been reported to have been lost, and much, much more. Doctors are not in hospitals as we speak. We're talking about education and the crisis there is in education sector in the country. You talk about development that is not there. You talk about cost of living in the country, the taxation regime, and each and every corner you go to, it is difficult for regular Mwananchi. Can we party like we are partying today in the face of where the country is at? Or is it a question of, you know what, we're in power, we are close to, we are the ones who are collecting your taxes, and with that taxes we'll do as we wish? And like you say, Kenyans were warned. You're not surprised that it's happening as it is. But that notwithstanding, what must the Mwananchi do? Or they can't do anything at all?
The leadership that we have is determined to push Kenyans on the wall.
Are we not there already?
We are a few inches to the wall. When we get to the wall, we might not even have a chance to sit like this and talk, because every caution will be thrown out the window. And I think God was gracious enough to open the eyes of the leaders in 2024. Just a glimpse of what can happen if Kenyans decide to do things their way. If they are pushed beyond a point of no return. But that lesson that was provided for the leadership in 2024, the leadership escaped it. And they are now burying their heads in the sand, pretending not to have learned anything from it. And I always give a warning every time I get a chance to speak on fora like this, that if we continue and it gets to a point where it's the Kenyan people deciding what is good for themselves, then we might end up losing the idea of a nation. It's important that, you see, Kenyans are watching, that they cannot afford these, the basic things that should be done are not being done. There's no money for education, but someone is paying for an expensive flight of 200 million.
Yeah.
The Auditor General says 11 billion is lost, but you are still coming and saying we need 22 billion. Why didn't you save the 11 so that we can start looking for the other 11? So, even if we give you the 22, how are we sure that you are going to use it as intended? The problem we are having in this country is lack of care for the ordinary Kenyan. It's about you who is in the office. You see, we've been treated to a lot of wise sayings that politics is about interest. The question is, whose interest? Is it the interest of a voter or the interest of the one vying? So Kenyans ought to think and answer that question for themselves. As you go to the next election, whose interest are you serving? It should be your own interest. And when you think of the interest of an individual Kenyan across the whole country, it's the same thing. Every Kenyan has an interest to educate their children, to access healthcare, to have good roads, to be sure of that their security is guaranteed. If we are not going to consider those interests for ourselves, we are not going to be saved, because the people we think can save us are the very reason why we are in this problem. They are the biggest beneficiaries of how things are today. So we must think for ourselves. And for instance, in Safina, we are saying that let us think as Kenyan people. Let us break the barriers of tribalism and think as an individual Kenyan. What do you want for yourself? What kind of government do you want your children to come and inherit? The kind of country that your grandchildren can grow up in. And we are asking ourselves, what could be the problem? Why are we facing all these things? Why all the deductibles on our income?
And more to come.
Yes, because I was looking at it the other day. Direct taxation on our income is 45%.
Yeah.
Indirect taxation is around 6%, which is around 51. So more than 50% of your income is financing someone's lifestyle. Your income that you wake up every morning to go and look for it is not benefiting you. It's helping someone purchase huge chunks of land. In a biting economy like this, we are seeing skyscrapers being planted like mushrooms. So you wonder, how comes we can't even afford food? That 22 million Kenyans cannot afford food, but some people are planting skyscrapers every day. Where are they getting the money from? Then you realize that it's because of pilferage of the national resources. So for us to ensure that we live in a country where everyone benefits, regardless of where you come from, we need accountability on the taxes that we are making. That every expenditure of government is directed towards the public good and not the enrichment of the already rich people who do not need the money anyway. Because you would ask, why are these people stealing? Because they have more than they will ever need, even for the fourth and fifth generations. But why are they still misusing our resources? It's because of their desire to control, that when you make money for yourself, they will be unable to control you. And why all the taxation? We all understand. The other day I was looking at the numbers a little bit, and I realized that in 5 months, the Kenyan government collected a tax of around 900 billion.
Yes.
But when you look at what went to debt payment, is 865. So for 5 months, the government made only 40 billion. When you look at salary payments in this country for a month, government spends 80 billion on salaries. So what we've made for 5 months cannot pay salary for 1 month.
West Pokot pays 3 billion shillings
Yes.
in wages. West Pokot.
So, and the minister said in a year we spend almost 900 billion, which is almost $1 trillion. So if what we can make for 5 months is not enough to pay salaries for a month, then what are we left with? Then where are they stealing from? It's at this point of debt, because who are we paying?
Who's actually and this is a question. The debt register is actually by law supposed to be a public document that you should be able to today say, I want to have a look at the debt register. Let's know how much Kenya owes, to whom, and let's see as of, the last payment, who was paid.
And how much.
And how much. So that's an interesting question. That if we say that 80%, which equals 860 billion shillings, was paid in the last tranche, who's receiving this money?
Yes.
Who's receiving this 860 billion shilling?
Because when you look at the admission of the former President Uhuru, for the 10 years he was in office, he admits to have paid 5.6 trillion to debt.
In 10 years?
In 10 years. President Ruto, in 3 years, he admits to have paid 4.6 trillion to debt. When you put all these two figures together, it's 10.2
trillion.
10.2 trillion. but we still owe 12.5.
So you're trying to say that Kenya's debt in the last 13 years is equal to 22 trillion shillings?
Yes, that's exactly what they are telling us. Because if we have already paid 10, why do we still owe 12?
12, yeah.
And to whom?
And to who? That's the biggest question.
Is it by design that the debt register in the country, the public debt that ought to be public, as the name suggests, is hidden that much?
It's by design,
By
because
design.
that is where the pipe of stealing is. Because you wonder, if after paying debt we only remain with 40 billion that cannot pay salary for a month, how are they affording those luxuries?
Where? Okay, hang on. So, if the money that is spent by government is money that comes from taxes, money that comes in from loans is not supposed to be spent on anything apart from development. And what other revenue does the country have at the moment? You can chalk up a little bit to import, export, but then it's remittances and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's minimal compared to this 900 billion, and that's just an example. So if that's the case, and you're paying off debt, and you have very little to go towards the second item on the consolidated fund, which is wages, where do you get the money for these lavish lifestyles that we see? Where do you get the money from? Where does it come from if it's not taken?
That's the question Kenyans need to ask, because when you look at the numbers of public expenditure and revenue collection, it paints a very grim picture. You can think, be tempted to think that even a minister is struggling. They are not getting their salaries on time. But somehow they are cruising in high-end vehicles. So the problem is and the reason why the issues of how we are paying debt is not public, because that is where theft is.
Does Kenya owe this money?
I believe that most of what we are paying to debt is fake, is only going into the pockets of the leaders that we have. Because, and mostly the issue of domestic borrowing, that's where the problem is. Because who is lending to government? Which bank? When you look at the banks that are lending to government, and you look at what they are lending to government, and you look at what we have collected in terms of debt domestically, the numbers do not add up. Which means that we are being told we borrowed money when we didn't.
So maybe we actually did borrow money, but it didn't go towards what it was meant to go towards, and then it actually went somewhere else. Now, follow me here so I can ask this question. That if I'm going to borrow 1,000 shillings, right?
Yes.
And the only way I'm allowed to borrow this is if I say it is going towards my groundnut project, so that I can buy groundnuts in order for me to see 1, 2, 3, right?
Yes.
And that there's one account through which this 1,000 shillings must go. Now, if it actually goes to the account, but I do not use this money for the purchase of groundnuts, then two things are happening. Number one, I'm breaking the law because I'm not allowed to do that. And then number two, I am actually then increasing the debt that I already owe, because you gave me 1,000 shillings before.
Yes.
So Kenya continues to borrow is not because we would then be able to see it. We had an economist here a couple of days ago, and you will be able to feel economic development. You can feel it. You can see an expressway. You would see it. You would see 1 trillion shillings if it was entered into the economy today. You would feel it. We would see something.
The impact is huge.
Absolutely. The impact of that kind of money on an economy is not something that you would be able to ignore. So what we're essentially saying is that in the last 13 years, Joakim, follow me here, and so that you can please help us to understand. In the last 13 years, 22 trillion shillings. Because remember, we're coming from the law.
Yeah.
You can only borrow in two instances in Kenya. Number one, you borrow for development. Number two, you borrow for a budget shortfall deficit, of which it can only cover 90 days. 3 months is the maximum. This is according to the law.
Yes.
So in the last 13 years, because that's the debt that you owe, 22 trillion shillings then has been used to cover those two things. Development and shortfall in budget over 90 days. Where is it?
You see, for us to understand it better, now that we only borrow for development, when you are told we owe $1 trillion in terms of debt, then we should be able to locate it in our development grid of the country.
Yeah.
That we owe this amount of money, and this is what we did.
This is what we did.
Yeah.
So if we can't locate it in our development grid of the country, then the begs the question, where did we take the money we borrowed?
Yeah.
It's a simple question. And that's why, Safina, we are saying anybody, even if we elect you today, if you are not going to deal with this issue of debt, there's nothing you're doing.
You know, let's use the 10 trillion shillings that we are paid, right?
Yes.
So the 10 trillion shillings, what it can do, and I've divided it into 3 segments, right? So it can build or fully upgrade 50 to 60,000 kilometers of roads, pave all major rural access roads, eliminate transport bottlenecks in agriculture zones. That is just 3 trillion, which can also complete and extend SGR to Uganda, Rwanda, and South Sudan. Can modernize Mombasa and Lamu ports, build dry ports in key inland counties, and what will be the result? Lower cost of goods, faster trade, massive job creation, and stronger regional dominance. When you talk about universal quality healthcare, 1.5 trillion shillings, so that we're talking about now 4.5 trillion shillings, which would be used to build fully equipped level 5 hospitals in all 47 counties. Upgrade every sub-county hospital and fully fund universal health coverage for all citizens. Another 1.5 trillion shillings will sort out education in the country. Free high-quality public education for ECDE, fully fund TVETs, a massive teacher training and better pay, national digital learning. Like you're saying, if we just take the 10 trillion shillings and put it into the economy, we would see it, we would feel it, and our lives would change.
So you are saying that because that's the money we've lost, those are the services we've lost.
We've lost.
So when you look at the money that's lost by government pilferage, look at what we've lost in terms of services. If we lose $1 trillion, how many kilometers of road is that? How many hospitals could we get out of it? And Kenyans must think, because these people that are stealing are brilliant, and they know that majority of Kenyans have had no access to huge amounts of money. So when we speak about $1 trillion, it escapes the imagination.
It's in a different galaxy.
Yes. And so they know that it will be hard for a Kenyan to even imagine what $1 trillion is, because most of the money he's seen with his eyes is 100,000, if they are lucky. But we want Kenyans to think in terms of the services they are missing.
Yeah.
Can we be able to afford free education for every child in Kenya? Yes. Why are we not affording that? Because we are paying debt.
Yes.
Why are we being deducted? The deductibles on our income is so huge. Why? Because we are paying debt. Why are we not getting services that we deserve as Kenyans? Because the money we are getting is paying debt. So, how do we solve this problem if we don't look at the issue of debt? And for us to recognize that this is even a problem that the government knows it is one of the 10-point agenda that necessitated the broad-based government existence. Audit of the public debt. But it will not be done by this regime, because by auditing,
You uncover.
they uncover their own nakedness.
Yeah.
So we don't, first of all, expect that they are going to do that. So in our first agenda as the party, immediately we assume office, suspension of debt payment until an audit is done, so that we can now tell this is the amount we need to pay and this is the amount we are not going to pay.
What precludes the government of the day from doing that? That's the overall question. I mean, I'll just hang on to that for a minute. That because of the issues that we see, it would appear as though these are systemic issues. That if a year on end, that the very staple, because the UNGA conversation was there forever, and that's why people went mandamana with sufrias, whatever, right? It's been there even before that. That if a country is not able to afford its staple, you have a problem. Number one. Number two, bread and butter issues are system issues. They're system issues. This education that we see that they're telling us 9.8 billion shillings, if they don't get it, the health system is going to collapse. Primary healthcare, boom, in the next 1 month, it'll collapse. It's in the paper today. These are system issues. Education, where capitation is never enough, you're owed blah, blah. System issues. The road network that you talk about, system issues. Now, if you want to, which I don't often like doing, but if you want to be like the developed, if you want to develop, you must do what the developed did, is what we've been told time without number. So now when we ask ourselves the question that we should not have people dealing with system issues, not in progressive governments or progressive governance, that you should not be worrying about where your food will come from. Now, until and unless those issues are taken care of, you cannot be dealing with some other things. That what business do you have putting up this great mega infrastructure if your people cannot eat? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer for me. If your children cannot go to school. If now you're telling us that the health system is on the brink of collapse, but we're talking about going to another country who has no business with you in the first place, those are the things that you should be focusing on. Now, if you want to ask that question and now put the umbrella question over all of this that I asked before, is that what business do you have doing some of these things if you cannot handle some of these basic issues? It's systemic. How do you deal with a system that seems to be designed to keep its people poor?
The leadership that we have is a steward of that system. They are meant to preserve the status quo. It's very easy to deal with an impoverished population.
Right, you can control them.
Yeah, it's very easy. You just show up during a day before Christmas with 1 liter of cooking oil, 2 packets of unga,
a leaf of sukuma wiki.
A leaf of sukuma wiki. You see, and there is a Kenyan who was not going to have it anyway, so they take it and they say, you are a generous person. Little do they know that you are responsible for their lack of food. And in the imagination of our president, the other day I heard him say that countries that have developed, they have moved forward because of dictatorship.
Yes.
Yeah.
That when a president says A, you don't ask a question and you don't oppose.
You say capital A.
Yes. And we are being prepared slowly by slowly into that kind of life. That when the government wants Adani to come and take care of the airport, you don't question. When they think of selling Safaricom, you don't question. And that's how we are going to go to Singapore, not questioning. And when you question, I have seen here in your newspaper, and when I was coming, I looked at when you were talking about the newspaper, the grand cover-up, where the police have meted violence. But somehow we don't know who did that. This police that did all these rogue things have vanished into thin air. The Inspector General doesn't know. The IPOA seems to be very clueless. But when you look at all these problems, who is the head of IPOA? Appointed by who? Who is the head of police? Appointed by who? So where do we have a problem?
Appointer.
They are appointing authorities, the problem. All these people are flower guards. There's nothing much they can do. And as we talk about an order, if the appointing authorities, the chief, commander-in-chief, which means he has the biggest order, which means the things we are witnessing are sanctioned by him. You don't need to be so brainy to know all these things. But how do we get away from this? What are they trying to achieve? Instilling fear in the public that you don't question, because what happened in Nandi, Napul, can happen to you. I was seeing on social media yesterday some young people in Moyale were tortured because of asking for some roads and all that. So if that's the country we are living in, and we are being told that we are going to first world, and when you ask, how are we going to attain this first world lifestyle, they tell you, you see, we have affordable housing. And this issue of affordable housing have been troubling me for quite some time. So We are saying, who are we intending? What problem are we solving in the society by building affordable housing? Is it a problem of job creation? Is it a problem of housing? Or what really are we solving? Because if we are building houses for someone who lives in Mukuru, Kwaruben, the first question we ask ourselves is, why has this person chosen
to live
in Mukuru? It's not because there are shortage of houses in better areas. No, it's because of the income that this person has. He can only afford a life in Mukuru. This person maybe pays a rent of about 2,500 shillings. And they don't pay on time. They still have arrears of rent. And you are now going to take this person on a 9th floor in an affordable housing. And you're telling me he's going to pay only 3,900. It looks like it's not much.
Yeah.
But that is just rent. We've forgotten that gas is piped. This person will have to pay electricity, water, garbage collection, all that.
Service charge, yeah.
So let's assume that a month, the service charge will cost 1,000, which makes it 4,900. Have we considered the income of this same person who was living in Mukuru paying 2,500 and struggling to pay? Now he lives on a 9th floor. I can tell you what will happen. Once this project fails and these people, if really the people from Mukuru are the ones being given, there is a term that is being thrown around by government, privatization. They will come and say, affordable housing project is not performing as intended. We now want to privatize it. A private developer will be in charge. So someone will come, repaint the houses, and then
charge what they want.
Yes. Tell the occupants to leave. So we are going to end up with other slums elsewhere.
But you see, when as we talk about affordable housing, if we just spent 1 trillion shillings, we'd be able to build 1 to 1.5 million decent housing units if we just spent 1 trillion Kenya shillings. That's just to throw out there. But if we talk about the debt that you're now handling, we say this debt has ended into people's pockets. Why? Because we are corrupt, right? And who is benefiting from this? The people who control these funds. So one then asks the question, if that's the case, there ought to be Auditor General, who's done her job, has given reports on what we are losing, but there is the other aspect of accountability that is lacking. Parliament is not in any way intended to ensure that justice is done. Instead, what are we saying? They are singing to the choir.
Parliament is very much affordable nowadays. It's very much affordable.
Hashtag buy a politician. What do you say? Hashtag buy a member of parliament.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Let's say, let's use an example of selling Safaricom.
Okay.
If the president says we are going to sell Safaricom at 300 billion, but Parliament will get 45 billion. So that's your cut. That is 150 million per every member of Parliament. We are going to campaign. Can you tell me there is any single member of Parliament that can turn down that offer?
For their campaign kitty.
Yes. He can use half of it and give the competitor very hard time. So we have an affordable housing project, affordable parliament, affordable bloggers. Everything is affordable nowadays. And it has ceased being a watchdog. It has become a lapdog and a rubber stamp for the executive. But, I was looking at the House Business Committee. If you were to put a bill to Parliament, the House Business Committee is chaired by the Speaker, deputized by the Majority Leader of the House, which means if these people do not agree to what you are saying, to what the proposals are in that bill, you're not going anywhere with it. And that explains why most bills die at the House Business Committee. So even if you wanted to pass a bill in Parliament, that is for the good of the people. You can't. They have raised stumbling blocks everywhere. And so we need to think about it as a people. As we are talking about crumbling of public health care, who is going to be a victim? It's not Duale.
Nope.
He can afford a chartered plane to London for a month. When education is mutilated, who is going to be affected? It's me and you, people who are shouting 1 term or 2 term on the road. So why don't we think about ourselves first? Why don't we be as selfish as these politicians? Because that's the only way out. Think about yourself personally. You need a good road. Why are you praising this leader who has not
done their job?
So
then who bells the cat? And then who do we know is going to do this? That there's been an argument for this, Joakim, that you don't listen to the person who comes in and says, I am going to do. You listen to the person who says, look at what I have done. But there doesn't seem to be so many who are able to tell Kenyans today, look at what I have done. So what do you do with that? Who do you believe when they come out and say, I'm the person that you need to vote in because I will do 1, 2, 3, I will cut this. Or are there not enough people who have actually done significant things in their spaces who can then and offer themselves up for the service of leadership in Kenya?
There's a term, a phrase called drain the swamp. Why do we drain the swamp? Because nearly everyone in this governance space is either has benefited from the rot or is perpetuating the rot. And the reason why I support the Honorable Jimmy to be president is because he represents freshness. He represents majority of Kenyans who have never been voted for in public office. And therefore, he's coming to bring in a fresh breath into the problems. And when you look at the proposals we have in the party that he's the party leader, it actually paints a picture of someone who is very radical and is going where for the problem. Because if we want to listen, the proposals we have to be said by any other person, we can't, because we know that in one way or the other, they have benefited from the problem that we have. And one of the problems we are having is that despite the fact that government is doing the wrong things, we have not inspired a lot of hope as the opposition. Because Kenyans are thinking, okay, you have, the president is not doing all the right things, but are you any different? And that's why we are saying as Safina, we are the difference the Kenyans are looking for. We are saying, let us have a competition of ideas. We have put on the table the first agenda. Let any other person who thinks they have a better idea bring it. And let the idea win, so that when the best idea wins, every Kenyan has won. But if we don't do that, and we continue looking at it as politics, it is no longer politics. It's about lives and livelihoods. It's that serious. Because on the issue of debt again, why is it fashionable for President Ruto to have an idea of privatizing all state assets? It also comes back to the issue of debt. Look at the 2 committees that were discussing about divestiture of Safaricom.
Right.
One committee is on public finance and privatization. The other committee was a committee on public debt. So we are talking about privatizing Safaricom. What is the committee of public debt doing in that meeting? Which means we are selling Safaricom so that we get money to pay debt. Because before June, President William Ruto needs 800 billion to pay to debt. In terms of our projected tax revenue collection and other government obligations, we can't pay that debt using the taxes that we are collecting. That's why he's thinking of selling Safaricom. And I can tell you, after selling Safaricom, it has nothing to do with infrastructure and sovereign wealth fund. That's a smokescreen.
And what I'm hearing you say is that, okay, so this is likely to happen in another 6 or 9 months when all of that comes through, whether it's KPC or Safaricom. What I'm hearing you say, because soon after the announcement of this, then the funds you will see will be received in this fund, wherever it's going to be, who's going to, deal over that. But what you're saying, Simiyu, is that in a short while after that, we'll ask, okay, so whatever happened to the combined 400 billion shillings that was supposed to come in from KPC and, partial divestiture Safaricom, we will not be able to see that money.
You are not. Look at. It's not going to come to the consolidated fund. You see, money from privatization is a revenue. It should come through the consolidated fund. But where is it going? They have infrastructure fund. It's listed as a PLC. Who is the director? The parliament has no direct control on that fund. Mm-hmm. So how do we budget it? Who is going to be in charge of it? We can't even control how that money is going to be used, yet it's come from a public asset. So if there is any Kenyan out there who is expecting miracles after privatizing all these things, you are wasting your time. We are not going to get it. And think about it. In 20 years to come, what are we going to sell? Mm-hmm. After we are done with Safaricom, he will move to Kenya Ports Authority. He will move to any other blue chip. So as in 20 years, what will we be selling? The 20% government stake that has remained in Safaricom, the projected dividend for 15 years, wameshachukua. So, wamefuliza dividends. So, if this is a fuliza economy, that the taxes we are paying today was spent in 2016, and what will be collected in 2029, we are using it now. So, how do we even have an idea of development? How do you provide all these services and make Kenyans enjoy the kind of government that is beneficial to everyone? Which is why we really need a change of leadership.
So draining the swamp
Yes.
is the situation in which Kenya must find itself?
I feel pity because if I can imagine for 1 minute that President Ruto has come back for his second term, I can't Sipati picture. I can't get that picture because it means, and he will be more dictatorial than he is now. Right now, he could be worried if he will get a second term or not. If he gets it, it will be worse. And people who are shouting 2 term will be the first ones to start crying, because how do we live through 2 term? How will the situation be like? Because that is the kind of life we need to think about. So I am telling Kenyans that their sweat and blood is going into the pockets of the private sector.
So, Joakim, one asks the question, with draining the swamp and bringing in new leadership, one would say, today we want to go to Singapore, right? But Singapore never waited for anybody. They just did their thing and became Singapore. When Kenya mobile money was coming up, we never asked for any permission. We put it up, we developed it, and today Kenya is a model example on how to do it. You talk about the Facebooks, the X, Twitter, Instagram of this world. They never waited for anyone. They developed it and shot with it. Is it an opportunity? Is it about time that Kenya looked inward and said, we have tried the same thing for a very long time and it has not worked. Let us try something new and see how it goes. Or is that also a bigger risk for Kenyans? Because they also say, better the devil you know than the angel you don't.
Yeah, if you refer to someone as the devil, you already know the outcome.
Okay.
Which means you already know what will happen.
Yeah.
So this angel, even if I don't know him, he's an angel. And I know what angels do. So I better go for the angel I don't know. Because this is the devil. I know him, but he is the devil. And there is an angel there elsewhere. I don't know him, but he's an angel. I know what these two people do. So the reason why we are being told, we are going to all these places is because we did not have the wherewithal to achieve the dreams that we are telling people we want to. For you to even start imagining of being like Singapore, the first cancer you need to deal with is corruption. If we are giving them a slap on their wrist, and the people who get promotions and big jobs are the people who have previously been accused of stealing, then what are you telling me? Are we going to achieve anything? We look at when we lost the first Eurobond, and there was a lot of hue and cry about it. Who was the minister at that time for finance? Who was the PS? He's now the current governor of Central Bank. Who was the deputy president? And the deputy president of that time is the president. And I remember him saying, mambo ya madeni, niulizeni mimi. I am the deputy president. I'm in charge. So today when we ask him the same questions, they tell us, no, that was Uhuru's government. So shifting goalposts. And I keep on saying that don't expect a good thing from a bad person. We are expecting good governance policies. We expect capitation to come on time from people who we know they benefit from capitation not coming, so that he can show up in a funeral and promise our mothers bursaries. I've seen our mothers kneeling in funerals. That's what gives them pleasure. So how do we expect that these people are going to be any different? What is their Damascus moment? And the other reason why I support Jimmy is because he's a businessman, and there is something about business people. When you have gone to Kikomba, bought shirts, and you have put them in your store, your prayer is that the people should have money so that they can come and buy your shirts. And when we are going to have a person who has built a name around business, is that he will be willing to put structures in place that enables Kenyans to have something in their pocket so that business can thrive. That's why we are saying the government of Safina shall be driven by the private sector. That you are not going to wait for Nyota for you to begin to open a business. You can do it on your own. When tax rates, when we reduce VAT from 16% to 5% sales tax, which means everyone in this country will have saved 11% of their salary deductibles. And you can imagine that will happen on the price of fuel, everything.
So it seems as if this thing that we are chasing is not so difficult to achieve.
It's not.
But the problem is that there is no willingness to then be able to do it.
It's not so difficult. But these other people make it look so difficult. And they will ask questions like, the consequences of not paying debt. We are going to our credit ratings worldwide.
That guy who is always frowning, Moody.
Yes. He's always frowning.
You see, when we don't pay debt, we are using almost 2-point-something trillion every year to pay debt, which means we have the 2 trillion in our pocket. Why do we need a loan for? We can use the 2 trillion per year to provide services that Kenyans want.
Exactly.
So who is that person that is going to give us headache? We are going to use our laws. You asked a question as to why the current leadership cannot be the one to solve this problem. After the election of 2013, at around, was it June, the then majority leader of parliament, Aden Duale, who is the CS of health, saying that we need 22 billion, moved a motion in parliament and said, we need to amend the constitution. Say, the money we borrow must not come through the consolidated fund. They can be paid directly or be taken anywhere.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with the first Eurobond. So they amended the constitution by an act of parliament, which is illegal. And that's where they are stealing from. It's a loophole they created for themselves. So how can they be the ones to rectify that problem?
How can you fix the problem that you yourself created?
Yes.
Scoot over and let somebody else do it. Coming to the realization that a lot of these things are in plain sight, they're not even hidden. And for Kenyans to then make decisions about them, I think is very important. At the time we are in right now is to say, you know, clean house.
Yeah.
Kenyans would have an opportunity to clean house in about a year and a half and to becoming alive to these situations. Joakim Simiyu is the SG of Safina Party, has been here with us this morning. Thank you for those insights and for sharing with us. And we look forward to a time where Kenyans are not complaining about food, shelter, education.
Yes.
But we're dealing around other issues. Asante Sana, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you very much.
Conversations continue at 9:09. Good morning.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.